Hi, this is Donna from Love Consciousness. Now, this is a little reflection on my understanding of what it means to be multidimensional. A multidimensional being, I think, is the word I first heard a few years back. And I began to think about this concept and began to have experiences that were soon to deepen my inner or understanding of what it actually means to be a multidimensional being. And so I'd like to share my experiences with you. I'd like to say at this point that these are just my experiences. I am still evolving. I don't have all the answers. But if my experiences can be helpful in some way, then that's all good. So take what resonates with you, and if you see it in a different way, that's fine. Discard the rest. So, working as a therapist for many years and working in consciousness, I kind of understood multidimensional consciousness from a very 3D perspective, if you like. And what I mean by that is having different aspects of ourselves streaming through us. So there's something called parts therapy, for example, and what it does is it looks at that we have many parts. And this may be because as we've moved through life, we have been many different versions of ourselves. Often in different situations, we slightly adjust ourselves to suit the situation. And so from a consciousness point of view, it was easy for me to say, yeah, I can see that if we are streams of consciousness, how we can switch channel, I guess, and we can switch into a slightly different vibrational version of ourselves. But obviously this goes much, much deeper, and this is way, way beyond the 3D realm. And so a few years ago, I started developing spiritual sight. And one of the things that I witnessed was seeing individuals around me shape-shifting, if you like. I see them shape-shifting into different forms, into different beings, different human beings, sometimes even different beings that weren't human. And this really, really fascinated me. And I didn't really know what I was viewing or why I was viewing it, but of course I wanted to dig deeper and I wanted to understand this more. And so what ended up happening as I moved forward is that I began to engage in ceremonial space. And often I would take small amounts of magic mushrooms in ceremony. And what I instantly noticed was it would switch this spiritual sight immediately on. And the clarity in the spiritual sight was quite profound for me, especially to begin with. Because what I was seeing was just stuff that I'd never witnessed before. So not only was I seeing individuals within the space, if you like, shape-shifting into different human beings, into beings that I didn't recognise as human, there were other individuals that I came across in these spaces that I now understand that they were channeling or streaming higher levels of consciousness through them. So I just want to explore that a little bit with you and just share my understandings of what that looked like and what that means, or at least what the conclusion that I've came to of what that means up to date. So when I was viewing these individuals that were channeling higher streams, they weren't shape-shifting into different beings. They were staying in their own form, and what was happening is I could see streams of consciousness appearing all around their physical being. And as I looked at these streams of consciousness, there was a few things that I noticed. I mean, each particular consciousness had a different geometry to it, so a different energy to it, very often different colours to the streams that were coming in. And I would even notice that there was particular location points, generally within the face or the head area, in which these higher streams of consciousness was coming in to the human. So obviously, like, I found this really, really fascinating, and it opened up a whole host of questions for me, like, what is this? What is happening? Why are some individuals shape-shifting into different beings, and some of them not even human? And why are these other individuals streaming these beautiful, colourful, expansive consciousness that's appearing all around their physical being in their energy fields? And so the more I kind of viewed it, the more I began to understand or understand what was happening. So I guess at this point, what I should say is that I want you just to imagine for a moment that the human body that you're in is an avatar. And this is how I see it, and this is why I'm putting it across this way. The reason why I feel it's helpful to look at it as an avatar is because I just want you to move away from the personhood for a moment, and to really grasp that everything is consciousness. You're not actually a human being. You are consciousness having a human experience. So when you think about your human being as an avatar, and if you think about your avatar as an instrument that is designed to stream consciousness, and as the consciousness streams through the human translates the consciousness. So there will be certain feelings or thoughts, which will then become behaviours, all relevant to what stream of consciousness is being received through the avatar in any given moment. So when I'm looking at individuals and I'm seeing them shape-shifting, if you like, into different beings, one of the things I noticed quite early on was these different beings that I was seeing appear through these humans that I was looking at. They looked quite sad, a lot of them, scared. A lot of the beings that I was seeing channeling through individuals had a lot of distortions about them. So they weren't kind of complete faces. Perhaps the mouth was missing, or the eyes were missing. And really, when you're not used to seeing this type of thing at all, it was all very strange to begin with. So I began to realise that these streams of consciousness that I was seeing were coming from the lower chakras. And in fact, most of humanity, again, I can't say how many because, you know, I wouldn't have a clue, but I feel that most of humanity have been streaming mainly from their lower three chakras. The lower three chakras represent the first, second, and the third dimension within us. And, you know, me, for example, I've experienced a lot of repression in my life, depression, anxiety, and these kind of denser emotions, they are consciousness that are streamed through the lower chakras, so it would make sense. It may well be that you're seeing past lives. As I said, I was even seeing beings that looked like they weren't human. And, you know, even to this day, I'm not exactly sure what I was seeing there. Perhaps beings from different planets, perhaps what we know as entities or shadows. And so just all really, really fascinating. But they definitely appeared to be streams of a denser consciousness, if you like. When I was looking at individuals streaming these higher levels of consciousness, And they weren't shape-shifting, they were staying kind of solid in their own form. And I'm seeing these different types of consciousness around the individual and coming into entry points on the face, on the neck, on the head, and often seeing some kind of symbol, if you like, where the energy was connecting in, I guess is how I would describe it. And what I began to notice is that I could begin to recognize certain streams. So in other words, some individuals were sharing similar streams of energy, similar colours, similar geometries, etc. So really, my understanding, kind of having viewed this and having asked lots of questions about what this means, and who are we? Who are we? What are we? And going back to what I said at the beginning is, imagine yourself as a consciousness. And as a consciousness, you're having an experience as a human being. Now, the consciousness needs an avatar. It needs an instrument in order to have this human experience. But we're not one single consciousness. We are made up of multi-dimensional consciousness, multiple streams of consciousness. Now, each human being, again, this is just my own understanding. I've got more to learn. Each human being is unique. Each avatar, each instrument is unique. And it's unique because it has its own particular gates and channels available to it, which means that each individual will have access to different streams of consciousness. So for example, we have access to all of the streams of consciousness that we know as our ancestry. So we hold the consciousness or the access points to the consciousness of our ancestry, which means that if we can gain access to all of our ancestry streams, imagine the amount of wisdom you would hold and you would have access to. Now, the reason why we don't have access to all of our ancestry streams is because we hold a lot of trauma. We hold a lot of density. So there's a lot of blockages and there's a lot of the channels that need clearing. A lot of channels within the avatar needs clearing out in order for us to regain the access to these streams and this wisdom and this knowledge that, of course, we all have our own individual ancestry. Therefore, that's unique to every single human being on the planet. On top of that, we have our soul lineages. So we will have our particular soul channels, and that will mean that all of the incarnations and all of the experiences we've had on a soul level, which is obviously expands beyond the earth. So we may have had incarnations on different planets, for example, in different solar systems. And so again, this is unique to each soul. Not one soul has had the same journey. And so again, what we've got is we've got all these ancestry channels available, and then we have the soul channels. And again, beyond that, I'm not really sure exactly how it works. I'd love, if anyone knows anything about this, to please comment and add to this wisdom and this knowing. We have our origins, so I believe there's certain channels that we perhaps all have available to us. And so as we decondition, so as we release the density, we begin to have access to more of the channels that are available to us. Now, going back to what I said about when I was seeing individuals shape-shifting into different beings and they look quite sad, and I could see fear and trauma, I may have been viewing past lives, past life versions. I may have been viewing their ancestry, and there may have been healing that had to take place. And so that individual would have the opportunity at some point, perhaps to clear and heal the traumas within the physical body that came from the ancestry, which will allow them to then have access to more of the wisdom of those lineages, if you like. And as we clear up our channels, so as we come out of the density, so in other words, more clearing, more releasing of lower energetic patterns, more healing, more self-love, beginning to really open up the heart. You know, the more we open our heart, that is the gateway, that is the access to the higher channels. And so, for example, in my experience of life, you know, having suffered from a lot of depression, I really, really closed my heart down. So therefore, I was probably spending most of my time channeling lower levels of consciousness. Once you open up your heart, you then have that access to the higher chakras, which really allow you to open up to the higher levels of consciousness that you do have available to you, that we all have available to us. And this is why you will hear the words, you know, the words like, you know, how important self-love is. You know, self-love isn't just important so that you feel good and you find a state of peace. Self-love is important so that you can really reclaim and gain access to all that you are, your full potential. And that's why the key is love, because it's activating the heart, it's opening the heart chakra, and that allows that gateway to allow the avatar to receive those higher levels, those higher streams of consciousness that you are. So there's lots and lots more I could say about this. You know, I could speak about things like consciousness streaming through us that is not of our source. For example, entities and shadows and what have you. You know, how do we prevent this from happening? But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to save that for another recording. So I just want to summarize this up. So the way that I see it is that we are pure consciousness. So we, as a human being, we have multiple access to all of these different consciousness streams. And the sum of all of those different consciousness streams is who we really are. Not the human, not the avatar, but the consciousness streams that run through the avatar, that run through the human being, that run through the instrument, which the instrument receives and interprets in its own unique way to allow the consciousness to have a human experience. So I hope you found this helpful, interesting. Again, this is just my perspective. There are many, and it's all from my own experience. If you want to listen to more of my little short reflections, tune into Love Consciousness, and please comment below. I always am interested to hear other individuals' unique takes on these subjects. I'm sending you lots and lots of love. Have a beautiful day. Bye for now.